my surprise when my girlfriend, I hadn't heard from her in a while, and then I received an email from her saying, "David, thanks for writing to me. I've been working long hours and at very low pay for organisation," and I'm going to say name withheld, "for the last few weeks. Look, I'll try to make it up to you on one of the weekends coming up and we'll go out to the movies together." And I thought, wow, she's joined that organisation and they've got her working for next to nix, week after week after week. And she's, I don't know, this is just a bit too much to understand. How does one really deal with that? I mean, seriously, how does one really deal with that? It's a bit hard to get over. However, I have to really think about this. There probably is an upside to the story somehow. Let me explain. Now, firstly, the good news is my friend eventually did leave this cult organisation. She eventually left it. They tried to exploit her too much for working for free, and all the indoctrination that they gave her. She said one day, "I quit," and I'm thankful that she got up and left. However, since she's left, there's one thing that has been a startling fact about her encounter with that organisation. And it probably sounds a little bit of an obvious one because they ended up owning a part of her mind. You know, the numbers of times that I've met with my friend for cups of coffee and I talk about something or other and then next thing you know she says, but there is the technology that blah, 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 blah. And she goes back into talking about the cult speak that was from the organisation that she'd left. Once again, this is some time back now. But they basically have left an imprint in her mind of all the things, her viewpoint upon the world is different ever since. One needs to look at this from the basis of how does your business look like when you compare it to a cult? Now, the average business, think about this, comparison here is the average business out there, the average entrepreneur usually is in struggle street when it comes to looking for customers. You know, they have a tough time trying to recruit staff and hold on to staff. I remember a time when myself and a mate of mine, we had a coffee shop in Brisbane and recruiting staff was an ongoing monthly type of event. We were always placing ads and so forth like that. We were always doing promotions to get customers to come into the front door. There were other cafes little more than about a block or two away from where our cafe was. And a lot of businesses are like that. You have to work really hard to get your customers. You have to work really hard to keep your staff. Even when you're doing the work, there's a lot of cleaning up that's involved. You have to pay rent. You know, you're always trying to work things out. And even when a weekend comes, it's barely enough to handle a weekend. And then before you know it, Monday, it's all starting all over again. And you know, you're back on the treadmill. What's it like for a cult by comparison? A cult by comparison to that of a small business? Well, for one, as per example, they get a lot of their staff for free. Maybe they do pay for some administration staff, but we'll count that as an absolute minimum. Basically, 90% of the effort that's involved in running a cult comes from the members themselves. Also, recruiting new members to a cult is usually left up to the members. And the members may bequeath or pay massive amounts of money into a cult in order to go to courses, attend events, and that is maybe buy resources or help put into a building fund or some other thing like that, of which the cult takes 100% ownership of. And by the way, the cult leaders, usually the people higher up in the organisation, in any cult or sectarian type of organisation, they will all live very comfortably. They do tend to look after their management. I kid you not. All of the cults that I've had a look at from that basis, if you're in the upper levels, upper tiers of management, they do tend to look after those people a bit better. Maybe not completely the best. Once again, a cult tries to own your mind and tries to own every aspect of your entire life. So there may be some level of degree of comfortability, and cults usually can get by tax-free, which is something your business cannot. I know in my business, I have to file tax returns and everything just like everyone else. But cults can usually exploit different laws whereby they can get around tax laws and so forth like that. So the money they get, the money they keep, they basically have all of it themselves. I suppose one big benefit that we can learn from this is, one, they have retention techniques. Admittedly, you wouldn't want to have your customers held to such an extreme as cults do, where they virtually own your mind and so forth. But there is something to learn from that. If your business was a cult, how would it look like? If your business used recruitment techniques of how to bring in customers like a cult did, how would it do that? If your business was to reward its upper level management, how would it do that? From a point of view of comparison, it's worthwhile having a look at these and exploring these ideas and say, well, what can I learn from this that I could apply to my own business? What am I doing now that's really hard work, and what can I shift the paradigm of my own thinking so that I can see my business differently? That's the question you need to ask. I'm not saying that you have to join a cult to find these things. There are some very interesting books on Amazon Kindle that I've been reading about how cults work and how cult brands work. There's some big brand names out there, big drink brand names, brand names to do with computers, brand names to do with even airlines, all sorts of different things like that, and they all have a cult-like following. And there's also been scientific studies on how the brain works in a cult versus that of a cult brand, and there's not a great deal of difference. The way how the person who follows the cult brand, the mind operates much the same way as how they follow the cult as maybe a religious cult or a leader type of cult or even a personal development cult, whatever the case might be. The brain operates much the same way in treating it as that of how they treat a brand that they're following. So think about that and think about your business and think about how you can look at your business differently and see, what am I doing that's hard work and how can I change that into something a heck of a lot easier by changing my mind and looking at ways how I can improve my processes to make it so that my customers do the selling, so make it my customers earn the rights to earn those extra points so they can get that cup of coffee. Whatever the case is, think about it. This is David Newton speaking.